So let's start with getting your church noticed. Okay. Now, yes, you need to have an elevator pitch, but you also have to know how to craft it uniquely. So you're showcasing the uniqueness of your church, why you exist, how you serve people, can they expect when they visit, and what can they expect in their life if they plug into you? What kind of transformation can they expect? We call this in marketing positioning. Okay, I don't like to use a lot of marketing terms, even though ironically we call ourselves Nava Church Marketing. I don't like to use a lot of marketing terms to describe what we're doing because marketing terms are invented in the secular world, and I don't like translating them one-to-one into the church world. But this one I think is a accurate term for positioning. Positioning really is showing where your organization stands in the community of organizations, meaning your church is one church of 330,000 and more, not just count. I mean, let's count outside of America. There's probably over 1 million if you count all the house churches in the Middle East and Asia and all that. So your church is one of 1 million. In your community, your church is one of a dozen. Even in a small town, and I'm talking a town of less than 1,000 people, your church is one of 4, right? I'm in Texas, the land of small towns. And I talked to a man, Tommy, rabid follower. Love you, Tommy, if you're watching this. He used to think, but when he was lost in his small town, he used to think, what are all these churches fighting about? I mean, we're a small town. You got 4 churches in one town. And he used to think, what is everyone fighting about? But once you come to our side of the door, and after he receives Christ and becomes a follower and believer, he realizes, well, each of these churches is reaching a different group of people based on beliefs, based on demographic, based on who the pastor is, based on who the flock or what the flock is equipped for. So knowing how to position your church means what makes your church different from the other churches in your area. Not only that, if I've already, me as a community neighbor, if I've already blown off every other church in the area, either because I'm an atheist, I'm agnostic, I've been burned by too many churches, I have friends that have been burned by too many churches, the TikTok algorithm has served me way too many videos of church hurt, church abuse, and what's the anti-evangelism deconstruction. There you go. Deconstruction videos about people who just left the church entirely or are trying to figure out their own faith. I've just seen way too much anti-church stuff in the news. I don't care about any church. The question is, why should I care about your church? That's the question. So how do you position your church? Not only that, how do you position it within the community of your other churches? Okay. Well, another word we don't use in ministry is competition. You're not in competition with other churches. You may be in competition with worldly solutions. You may be in competition with the wolves in sheep's clothing. I think that comes naturally if you're a Bible-believing church and you look at another church that's preaching against the Bible, you're supposed to call them out. Right? So there may be some competition here, but in my experience, talking to churches all over the country, America, that is, we service the U.S. That's what we're gifted to do. So, right now we're serving U.S. churches. So that's where all my data comes from, experientially wise. We talk to churches in the same town. And they all have the same heart. And not only that, they have nothing bad to say about the other pastors in town, unless they're a wolf in sheep's clothing, unless they're being users of their congregation or not following the shepherd rule they're supposed to. But most of the time, pastors have nothing but good things to say about each other. So you're not in competition with other churches. The question is, when you position your church, you're not saying you're better than other churches. You're saying you're better equipped to reach a certain kind of person. What kind of person is that? On the most basic level, it's your language. You don't even have to be in a metroplex town to know that your Spanish speakers need a Spanish-speaking church. Your Korean language speakers need a Korean language church. Your Russian speakers need a Russian church. Your English speakers need an English church, right? They in Canada even, right? You've got French-speaking churches and English-speaking churches, and a lot of English churches do not bivocational, bilingual, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So the question is, on the most basic level, you are already turning away a group of people just by having an English-speaking church. Because if you're supposed to be everything to everyone all at once, then when is your Korean service? Why haven't you hired a sign language interpreter for your services? Because you're not equipped. And that's okay. You really have to ask yourself, what makes us unique? What makes our church our church? Because everyone, and you have to be able to explain this to someone, because everyone thinks they know what a church is. If you ask 100 people, let's play Family Feud, and you ask 100 people, what is a church? You're going to get 117 different answers. And they will assume what a church is based on their preconceived notion, their past experiences, and what they see other people telling them what a church is. And chances are, when you survey those 100 people and get 117 answers, you're not going to get a one-size-fits-all description of your church. Because your church may not have a college ministry. Your church may not have a kids ministry. Your church may not be catering or serving to senior adults. Your church may not have a food pantry, right? Someone's definition is going to be, a church is someone that provides community support, food pantries, suit closets, benevolence ministries, whatever. And your church may have none of that. So by their definition, you're not even a church. You have a unique position in your community to uniquely serve a unique group of people with your unique gifts. Therefore, you need a unique message that showcases why you exist. People don't need to know what your church is. They need to know why your church is. Play that, was the Guardians of the Galaxy 2? No, it wasn't. It was Avengers, Infinity War. They were like, where's Gamora? And the other guy was like, who is Gamora? And Drax was like, why is Gamora? That's the game we got to play, right? No one goes to your church because of where you are. They barely go because of who you are. You're a church. They're going to go to church somewhere. They picked yours for this case. To really communicate who you are, you have to communicate why you are. Meaning, why your church? Why do you exist? Why do you do what you do? You'll notice that if you talk to the people that really love their church and you ask them, why do you love their church? They're going to give you a very specific answer. It's very rarely, it's great preaching and friendly people. It's usually going to be Pastor so-and-so, Pastor John is a great preacher, is really practical, and I've made a lot of friends. Rosa, Miguel, Jose. I don't know why I'm going into a Mexican church. It's like I'm going back to my grandma's church, right? So that'll tell you that church is uniquely reaching this person, because they didn't say great preaching. They said Pastor John is a great preacher. And they didn't say friendly people. They named those people. That is where your uniqueness comes from. And that is what's going to start to get your church noticed. Figuring out who you are, why you are, and starting there to build your communication.